Keynote speaker for this evening is Chris Barrows. Chris is an experienced higher education and digital marketing professional. He currently serves as the social media and mobile products coordinator at New York University, where he is the main strategic lead and consults on social media, as well as the project manager for NYU's official mobile app. In addition, Chris is co-chair of the EduWeb Digital Summit with Joel Renner. He has run the YI Social podcast, yisocial.com, for 4 years, which is presently sponsored by the National Institute for Social Media. He received his master's in instructional technology from the Discovery Education Program of Wilkes University in 2012. It is my pleasure to present Chris Barrows on building your digital identity.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank everybody for over at this table for having me here. I'm really honored to be speaking to all of you. Hearing about the programs, by the way, today has been really cool. I'm part of a mentor-mentee program at NYU. It's focused on administrators, but being a part of one of those programs has been really meaningful for me. So to be here and talk to people going through a program that's like that is pretty cool. I normally have a clicker, so I apologize because my clicker, talk about be prepared, the battery died, so there you go. But I will be moving around a little bit, so beware. A little bit about me. If you do want to connect, these are all the places you can find me. I don't take offense if you don't, but this is where you can find me. I'm very active on social, and I want to stress it right now. If after this you have questions or follow-up and we don't get to it, feel free to reach out to me, please. I always say this. I know not everyone's going to do it, but if you've got a question, follow up, find me on LinkedIn, tweet at me, whatever it may be. Happy to answer your questions, happy to keep talking and keep the conversation going. So please feel free to reach out. A little bit about me, kind of mentioned already, I do social media at NYU, also work with our mobile app, and in addition, my podcast, YI Social, also EduWeb Digital Summit is a conference I run, but it's interesting because one thing I'm going to talk about is networking, and networking is what brought about EduWeb, so I'll make a reference back to that later. But I like to put this out there. What is my philosophy? And I think we all have these kind of personal philosophies. For me, I always stress it whenever I kind of talk to a group of people, but it's people first. Because as I talk to all of you, I introduced with saying, hey, if I can talk to you after you have questions, please let me know. I hold true to that. And that's part of this philosophy idea that all the actions we do, if we put people first, good things come from it. That's a core part of networking for me. And a lot of what tonight is about is networking. It's been stressed. Connect with the folks at your table, whether they're your mentor or not. Connect with the other mentees, with the other mentors. You never know what opportunities are going to come. And when you put people first, this happens. So I wanted to put some numbers in front of you. This is a snapshot right now of the world that is digital. You're talking about a total population about 7.5 billion. And then as you break that down, 53% are on the internet, which I know sometimes surprises people. But as we think about this, that's a lot of people on the internet that whether we do something that we post or someone else posts, is getting potentially seen. As you go into it, active social media users, 42%. So social media, obviously a big impact on our overall digital identity right now. And of course, mobile users, 68% on mobile. So keep in mind that that thing in our pockets or that thing that we have on the table, it's powerful. And it's integrated this market in such a way that we have to be conscious of it. And in particular, I say this because we individually are building our brands. Whether you're a mentor or a mentee here today, we're continuing to work to build our brands. We're continuing to improve who we are. I would like for people to think about the fact that they are a brand. The reality is, just because you don't own a company doesn't mean you aren't a brand. You are your own brand. And to be aware of what is being said about you or be aware of the reputation you have, immensely important. And this is a big part of that digital identity. So I have an interesting conversation actually when we first came in, kind of about a student I once met who actually wanted to be in the FBI and having understanding of her brand. She realized to be in the FBI, she actually needed to have no discovery on the internet. It's self-awareness. And it works. She ended up getting a job with the FBI, by the way. I believe it was an internship, but she was really hard to find on the internet because I was actually going to a group to speak to students and was told, hey, go find all these students in advance so you can speak more personally to them, and I could not find her. So props to her. Understanding, again, what is her brand. That's obviously an extreme of having a digital identity of having none. But once upon a time, telling a story, and I really stress this. We hear that once upon a time in a lot of different old stories that we might have heard as children. And the idea of what is your story? And I want to stress people to think about what is my story, where do I want to be, and what is the lesson that I'm going to pass on, whether it be to my children, whether it be to my mentees. What am I all about? And when we think of digital, I realize we're taking back a step from a platform in this, but what am I all about? Who am I? Understanding who we are and what our story is really important. It's ever changing, but this is going to help us build that identity. The things and actions we take, not just online, but offline, impact us online now. You never know who is taking a photo of something that you're doing. You never know who is listening to something you're saying. We hear this all the time in politics and business. The things that we do make an impact. So think about your story and think about the story you want to tell, whether it's a digital piece or not, because it may end up online. And I want to stress this. Set goals. Find goals for yourself. So if you are a mentee in this room tonight, you came in with goals, you came to your mentor and said, here's the things I want to accomplish. I'd encourage the mentors to have those same kind of goal-setting things happening. But when we talk about that digital identity, the setting goals is really important because we want to kind of determine and better shape what our digital identity is. When you search your name on Google, what comes up? And you can set this so you can see specifically what not just is customized, but search your name. What comes up? Do you come up? Is it your LinkedIn page? Is it a website? What is actually coming up from that search? And as I say up here, aligning it with passion. Because in this room, again, I had a few conversations before we started tonight. I can tell there's a lot of passionate people about the industries they're going into, whether it be politics, marketing, government. That passion is going to drive something that I don't care what your degree is, but it's going to drive you to take the next steps to find success. So by pairing your goals with passion, you are going to be happy, and you're also going to find a job, because the people, when you're going through that interview process, and they look at fit, and they look at what actually is something, a person I want in this office, they're going to see the passion and say, yeah, this person's got the smarts, they've got the skills, but they want to be here, and they're going to be a great fit for this. It's also going to make you happy. I want to stress that. As we think about this, wherever we are in career, we talked about career change. I don't know, I apologize because the name is now slipping my mind of which mentor-mentee it was, but someone talked about change and how they changed their careers from being a teacher. And I think the idea that we can change, that maybe if we're not following our passion now, we can follow it later. So for all of us, I think that's something we have to note. Time, I talk about time from digital identity. It takes time to build one. That is a strong one. If you're in this room, how many people in this room, please raise your hands for me if you have a LinkedIn profile, and keep your hands up for me throughout this. You have a LinkedIn profile, okay, great. How many people have a LinkedIn profile that they've updated within the last year? Within the last 6 months? Within the last 3 months? And within the last month? Let's take this a notch down. Last week. All right, we got a few left. I love this. This is great to see. The idea that it takes time to build and constantly update some of these digital platforms with the right information is really important. Taking the time and the effort to do it. It's both your time and overall period of time. Your own expertise is going to come out. I'm going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn later because I know it's an important topic, and I know it's something that the career offices here put a heavy focus on for good reason. But we'll get to that just in a little bit. Because what I want to talk about is taking action. What to do and the actions not to do. When we talk about digital identity, the actions we take, as I mentioned, online or offline, can impact us. They can hurt us or they can help us. The conversations we have here today can open doors. They could open doors that we didn't know were available. I tell the story of I got out of college and I had an opportunity to do an internship, which I just got out of school. I had done like 3 internships in college. I didn't want to do another internship, but it was a great opportunity to do some journalism for the AAA affiliate for the Yankees. I ended up getting a journalism job after that because of the internship. That journalism job is the difference maker that makes me the candidate that gets the job at a university where I learn digital, social marketing, et cetera, and get into the field. Ultimately, I end up at NYU where I am now. That one internship sets off a string. That internship, so you know, came from a recommendation from a person that I connected with because I networked. So the networking thing is huge. And for me, it was a simple action of saying hello. How often do we stand in an elevator and not say hello to the person next to us because they're on headphones or whatever? Sometimes it's great to take a break away and actually take action. And in terms of what to do and not to do, I want to give an example. This is actually a local business. This is my barber. I'm not just highlighting, I'm telling you to go to him, I swear. He is a really good barber though. But Danny has been doing barbering, or hair, or whatever you want to call it, since he was in high school. He started doing this, it was a passion, in high school for all the athletes. He was doing it in the locker room, and he did this. Now he has a business. He's 27, 28 years old. He's got this business. He went through school. He did everything he had to do. And you look at what's happened. This came out of passion. You look at the stuff that he's getting online. He's getting plenty of likes and all those social actions. But the most important thing is not the social side, because he's got this great digital recognition. But it's the actual money that's coming to his business. He is the busiest barbershop on that street in a town with 5 barbershops, which for some reason is happening and should not be occurring. I'm not sure how a town allows 5 barbers, but he's blowing it away. He's doing incredible work. But it came from a combination of passion and taking time to build his reputation. He had to go for school. He had to work hard, but he had a reputation in high school, and that's where it started. We're here. We have a chance to build a reputation from any level. He just happened to start young. So I asked these questions, and you can read. So I'm not going to insult you by reading these to you, but I want you to think about these questions. Because the questions I posed on the board are designed for you to think about yourself. I think this applies to both mentors and mentees in the room. Because understanding ourselves is important. It helps us determine what we want to be and how we want to be viewed. Digital reputation, or that digital identity, may not always align with that. It may take time to build that, but we have some control in shaping it. Not complete control, because obviously anyone can say anything on the internet, but you can control the overall story that's happening to your digital identity. And as we look, I don't care how old you are right now, the digital identity is a big piece of your future, because when people search you, when you're job hunting, they are searching on social. I don't know what the percentage is. Maybe someone at this table can say. I think the last I saw was like 79. There was a ridiculous number of how many people use social search for job hunting. I think it was 79%, and that was from the job hunters. Again, I don't have a quote of the exact source on that, but talk to the career service department. They'll tell you some really strong numbers of how people are researching you. But I want you to think about these questions. Does anyone in this room, as they think about this, say to themselves, I'm not sure what makes me tick? I don't think so, because I think most people know what drives them. They might not be doing it professionally, but they know what drives them and what makes them happy. So I kind of want to have some fun. I know we've got, take a few minutes here, take 3-4 minutes, and I would love for you to think about these 2 questions at your table, go around, have a quick discussion. The questions, of course, being, what adjectives do you want to describe you or your work? And what adjectives would others say to describe you? Forget that second question right now. Start with that first one. Go ahead and say, what do you want that perspective to be about you? And then I want you to take that second question home with you. After you've gone around and discussed this, take that second question back with you and ask just a few people, what are 3 adjectives that you think describe me? See if it aligns with what you discussed at the tables. But yeah, let's take 5 minutes. And I'll walk around, I'll say hello and kind of listen in, but I'd love for you to go around, say to people around you, just quick 3 words that you want people to describe you when you think of, and think of it as those keywords that might show up on a LinkedIn profile as well, because these are all going to obviously play a part both in person and online. So discuss. I know you've all been talking, and certainly think about this question, but I'm going to call it back up and say that if you didn't get around to everybody, I still going to ask everyone to kind of think about this thought of how you want to be perceived and what adjectives those are. And seriously, think about taking the time. Ask people who really know you what words they think describe you. It might be very enlightening to you, and you'll learn a few things. I actually went through, I remember, I kind of did this process for myself, and there's a few tests out there that kind of show you your personality traits and all those sort of things. But there's a great bit of research done on one's personality and how they best work with other personalities. I actually took that study and used it to help improve how I work with others because I did this sort of questioning and answering of myself. So I have some background with this, and there's a reason I really like this approach. With digital, I wanted to share some do's and don'ts. And I know not everyone in here is as active on social as others, but I think when you think about social, and this can apply also to websites, certainly, and comment boards and what it may be, though, you know, entering the comment board is dangerous. But to do, share your professional interests. I stress this, I'll mention Facebook later, but there's opportunities with Facebook that I'll get into. Even if you don't often post publicly, there's still an opportunity to shape what you're doing and share your professional interests there. Be social, and basically what I mean is if you post something online and have some thoughts or research behind it, take that opportunity when people ask questions to respond. Obviously, carefully, you don't respond to trolls, you don't feed the troll, but be social and engaging. You never know what door you're opening. And you build those relationships online, in person. They mentioned Joel Renner, who I run the EDU Web Digital Summit with. Joel's actually got a whole thing called Social Road Trip that takes people who met through Twitter and other places, and we get together in all these cities and with a group of events. And it's called Social Road Trip. And those relationships have been immensely valuable. And I actually know 1 or 2 people who from Social Road Trip got jobs. So if you think meeting people online, I realize that's the opposite of what we have ever been told, but you could actually meet people and get jobs, and it's a wonderful thing now. And then be aware of how public your posts are. So understanding that my post is public because it's a bad idea or it's a good idea. I mean this in 2 ways. So obviously sometimes a public post can be strategic because you won an award, great, make it public even if it normally is private on Facebook. And that's an opportunity so when someone comes to search you, that again, you're showing in a very positive light. So don't take social actions that conflict with kind of your overall theme of who you are. Ultimately, you don't want to challenge who you are and counteract and overall conflict with the personality you've put out there. I have a very good example of that. Don't share anything and everything. Make sure we read this right. Don't share anything and everything because something you share may not be appropriate. Think about it. If you question in your mind, should I post this or share this? And I mean verbally. If you have a conversation with someone and you think a joke is really funny, well, obviously, it might not be that funny. Someone else might tell you, someone that you said that joke, and then that gets on, and who knows? Who knows where that gets shared? So I've just stressed the fact that be careful what you share in person or digitally. It will get digital potentially. Do not expect instant return. If you're building a digital brand for yourself, please don't expect an instant return. Don't buy followers. Don't do any of that. Take the time to build a solid audience. If you actually look at what influencer marketing shows us now, people who have actually built a real relationships have significantly more influence. That's why there's a whole niche marketing, a niche influencer marketing segment that ultimately is more powerful. If you look at, there's the difference between influencers and celebrities, and I really like to stress that. Just because someone's got 200,000 followers doesn't mean they're actually a big deal. Twitter just recently went through to confirm that the verification's really not a special thing. It was meant to identify this as a person, and they had to reiterate that. So is don't get stuck on this high that some people are a big deal who aren't. And then never assume that something you post or share or do will not be posted online. It's really easy to think that back, I think, 5 years ago. But no, nowadays you never know what's going to end up online. And I'm going to talk through LinkedIn a little bit. For those of you who have a good LinkedIn account, there are some chances to improve it here. What I'm actually taking is from LinkedIn itself. I happen to have some great contacts at LinkedIn, and they had shared some resources with me a while back. So what I'm sharing with you comes from LinkedIn, and I have some links in here. Don't be worried if you can't get the link down. I'm happy to share this out and make sure you have the access to some of these links, which provide some valuable information. Yeah, this is an old profile of me, but basically I was just trying to say use a professional photo. Doesn't have to be, professional photographer, but use a nice photo that looks good, demonstrates who you are, not something with your dog, your cat, your anything along those lines. Use a professional photo. Kind of obvious. You've all heard that before. I'm not going to stick on this slide long here. The idea of a really clear profile name, something that gets your attention. Lindsay Pollock, by the way, knows LinkedIn really well. So if you look up Lindsay Pollock, you'll see she's talked a lot about it. But something that's very clear, that grabs your attention, but actually represents you. And if someone looks it up, it makes sense that, okay, hey, I'm doing a keyword search for someone who works in X field. Well, their headline's probably going to show that. And it's going to work accordingly. In this case, she is a New York Times bestseller. May as well point it out. This is a piece, and there is a link at the bottom, but this in particular piece I think is really powerful. These are some really important tips from LinkedIn. This article will show you those, but I've tried to summarize them for you here. The biggest thing with LinkedIn, that what they say in particular for that summary statement, which is really important because from a keyword search perspective, this is where you're going to come up in a lot of those recruiter searches. And if you haven't looked at how many people have viewed your LinkedIn profile, it's worth taking a look. I know for a fact that I have an average of somewhere between 200, 250 people in a 7-day period looking at it. Now, that's a lot of people. That's what I call opportunity. So think about the fact that you've got a lot of people looking at your profile probably, whether you know it or not. If you haven't looked, go check. I stress a few things in here. Stick to 3 to 5 paragraphs. They're saying paragraphs are good, but at the same time, I like the fact that they point out paragraphs because, again, this is a keyword central place where you can come up in recruiter search. And number 2 is really important about losing the jargon because they're not searching jargon in all likelihood. And then number 3, which I really like, which is write how you speak. In other words, be you. Because if you would not say something a certain way, you shouldn't have it that way on their LinkedIn because it should be representative of you. Doesn't mean you write in short text or anything like that, but simply write professionally in the way that you would. I will, like I said, there's a bit.ly link here that I have. I'm happy to share this afterwards that has the full details. The great thing about this article too is that it shows example profiles. So you'll see some of the profiles that LinkedIn themselves has recommended. And the reason they recommend it is because they got a lot of views and got a lot of attention and went through their system. So hearing it from LinkedIn to me, who's a data, the amount of data they have is insane. I've been in their offices and had conversation with them, and it's remarkable. I want to just stress the idea too that, look, you're in this room, you've got mentors, mentees, ask for recommendations. It does show up, it comes up in search, you can use them in other spaces. It's a nice reminder too when you're going back and looking for recommendations for a job of who are the people who recommended you and what roles and what keywords they might have used in it, because then you can go back and ask them to be references to an actual person who's trying to hire you. But definitely ask for recommendations, keep it personal, and obviously make them want to provide that value for you. And then share your work. If you have not used the visual opportunity on LinkedIn, you're missing out. I'm just going to stress it. Make sure you get to work on that and display your work, whatever it may be. This could be simple planning. If you did photography, it's one thing obviously, but if you did a marketing plan, if you worked on a legal briefing that has a specific thing, that is not obviously private, certainly there's more challenges there probably, but when you can share things, find a way to share them. LinkedIn, it's okay to brag. That's the thing I stress. LinkedIn is the place, the social network where it's okay to brag a little bit. and no one's going to judge you for that. And I don't know how many people have filled this part in. I have not looked at all the LinkedIns for people in this room, but this is a really important part that's come up a few times in my interviews and in my conversations with career professionals, but the volunteer section, to show that personality. Because what is the difference between you and someone else who are in a final interview? Well, the two of you both are qualified for a job in all likelihood, but what is your personality? Who are you as a person? They're looking for a fit. The things you do to volunteer stand out. They make you you. So think about that section. It's important. And again, all these LinkedIn pieces, put them together and think about them for your website. So if you are if you have a website, I would also recommend people get their domains if they can, even if they own them and park them. It's immensely valuable to own the rights to your name as a website if you can. This is important. My wife has taught me a lot over the years in career, but this is a great resource from LinkedIn where you can go. It's university.linkedin.com and LinkedIn for students. But for students, if you're looking for resources on LinkedIn, this is a fantastic place to go, get some information, and figure out what exactly they have to offer. So I mentioned Facebook. I want to stress, how many people in this room are on Facebook? Okay. When you say, how many people in this room, and a few hands here then, how many use Facebook Messenger? Okay. Facebook as a whole, news feed and everything. There are less hands for the news feed, there's more for the Messenger. This is a trend of going to messaging. But Facebook has a valuable piece if you do use it, and that is you do have the option of private or public. Now I stress this, just because you post it in a spot where it disappears or it's private does not mean someone can't find it. But if you have a primarily private Facebook feed, the cool thing you can do, you have an accomplishment, something good happens, post publicly. Change that to a public post. When someone goes to search you, they are going to find your Facebook page and they're going to see what's there. So post some good things publicly. You don't have to post everything publicly, but be strategic about what it is. The only thing you have to remember to do is change it back on your next post if it's still defaulted to it, but it's immensely valuable. And I also want to encourage people to look at Facebook groups. There's immensely powerful Facebook groups on there. There's these Facebook groups where you can connect to other people in similar fields. I'm in a higher ed social media Facebook group where the relationships have changed my career, and I'm in a podcasters group where I learn a lot of things that I didn't know about upcoming things or trends. So think about that and what opportunities are there beyond. Twitter, how many people are on Twitter? Okay, not as many. I will just say this, if you are on Twitter, there's a really cool thing about Twitter. I love Twitter personally, but I understand it's not gonna be everyone's thing. But Twitter is public. So you're, for better or worse, when you are on there, unless you have it private, which defeats the point of Twitter, you basically have an opportunity to really share what you are doing. There are incredible relationships to be formed there. And you never know who you can connect with. You can connect directly to people in the industries you're looking for, not just marketers, by the way, because I understand there's a lot of marketing or digital focus there. But there are people of all walks of life on Twitter. Use it as a chance, because if you go on there, they have a search functionality that is remarkable for finding people who are in the industry who you might want to connect with. You take the search from LinkedIn, from Twitter, and find those people on LinkedIn, connect with them, and create the opportunity for an informational conversation. You just open a little bit of a door, the cracks open just a bit, and maybe that door opens for you one day. So I just want to encourage people to consider the opportunities that are there. Instagram, if you're not in the visual field, Instagram can still be a great storytelling platform. You can still use the stories features as a public storytelling system to tell about your work or what you're doing, or if you're at a conference and you're presenting, you can use these pieces, save them, and put them into a reel. So there's opportunities, even if you are not digitally focused in your general craft, to tell those stories and use these tools to your advantage. Again, think of the opportunities with social as a chance to connect with people who are like-minded. So the hashtags from Instagram can connect you there. And if you're at a conference or an event, I mean, if you're in technology and you're at something like South by Southwest, I mean, the people you can connect to and potentially land opportunities with, and that goes across all sorts of industries. Over a hashtag, it's possible. Instagram has the stories feature much like Snapchat, but Instagram stories feature is a little bit more I'd say used these days, according to data. The stories feature is more with friends on Snapchat. And I mention Snapchat, and I mention this, and why we mention this professionally. I mostly want to stress the fact that if you because you snap something and it's meant to disappear, please, just a friendly reminder, it could be found. You never know who's going to screenshot that. I know it tells you if you screenshot, but be mindful of that. But I can tell you great things happen from Snapchat too. I know people who've built up whole careers and relationships from Snapchat. People who met through a snap and got married. I know one group of that. And I know also another person who ended up connecting business connections through Snapchat and then ended up connecting over on LinkedIn. So think about all these platforms and how they can go back to something else. It all depends how you use it, and that's the biggest thing I try to picture out there. How you're using it does not have to be typical. It could be atypical to what the trends of the actual network is. I talked a lot about consistency. This is an interesting LinkedIn post. I've cut out a lot of information, so no offense to the person, but I think it's a really interesting piece that happens here. This post, the person is saying, if you want to grow your customer base or following, research leading brands and be more like them. But here's the problem. This person constantly was saying, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. This is a complete deviation, and the comment tells that. So understanding yourself and understanding who you are and being consistent is important. So I want to stress the idea of being consistent, because it is going to come off as, wait a minute, you kind of went this way. What's your validity behind that? Why are you doing that? And you can see, again, that is the comment that's in there. And I mentioned earlier, of course, the idea that you need to be aware of what you do and be aware that if you did not take a photo of something or did not say something online, it could get somewhere. And this is meant to make you go, ugh. But this is something that someone did. They did this at the store, they stacked it, and this is obviously incredibly distasteful. They clearly did not think about it. This is on the internet. It was not posted by the folks themselves, from my understanding, but this image gets on the internet because someone was distasteful enough to do this. And anything you can do, it does not have to be at the scale of a major event like this, obviously. It could get on the internet, one little comment. And I don't want to scare people, because that's not what the intent of it is. It's simply saying be mindful what you do and think about your actions, because all actions have a reaction, be it positive and or negative. The good thing is you can keep an eye on this. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but Google Alerts, seriously, set up a Google Alert on your name. It's really useful to do. You can set up a Google Alert. Anytime your name comes up, you'll see it. Could be a positive story. Could be in the news for something really awesome you did. Could be someone saying something that's not true. But whatever that scenario may be, it's keeping an eye on who you are and what's being said. And there's obviously going to be multiple people with names, so you can go through set multiple alerts. And if everyone wants to learn search words and how to do search effectively, I've got more than a few thoughts on it. I've been doing social listening for at least 5 years, so I know a lot of the best ways to do this. But set up a search on your name. In the minimum, search yourself and see. And other alerts you can consider, jobs. My dream job would be, to be quite honest, to do something at Marvel. I'm obsessed with Marvel. I love Marvel. I have a keyword search on Marvel. Anytime a job at Marvel drops in the marketing department, I see it. It does not mean I apply to every job. I'm very picky, but I see it because I know that. So think about this for more than that. Think about what you can do. Think about job titles, how you can compare what a job title is for people and what that job role is. Because if you really are looking to the future and you think, I'd really like to do this, well, what is that role typically doing? So again, search can be very powerful. I just recommend you set up some search parameters. And this describes engaging and talking to people for a lot of folks that I know. It's awkward. I don't want to talk to someone. The value of engagement is really, really valuable. Taking time to get out of your comfort zone and say hello to someone. It might be to get online and simply, message them and say, hey, I really like the work that you're doing. I'd love to set up a conversation to learn more about it. You're going to get no's, but that's okay. That's going to happen. Ultimately, It's not as awkward as you think. We are living in a time when if you were to message someone on Twitter or another platform and say, I really like what you're doing, would you mind sharing a little bit more with me? I'd love to learn a little bit about it. This is an understanding, but this is kind of what's happening now. People know it. And I want you encouraged to think about that. Don't be afraid to hear no or get no response. That's going to happen from time to time, but don't be afraid of that. It's definitely not as awkward as you think.